All right, let's take a look at this week's internet weather. So these are the top 10 most probed ports for the past week. You can see there has not been a lot of change in the relative rankings of these ports, but I'll run through them very quickly anyway, just as a refresher. So in first place, we have 23 TCP, that is Telnet, followed by ICMP, that is Ping. Third place, 22 TCP is SSH. 6379 is in fourth. That is Redis, which is an in-memory data store. Fifth place, 389 UDP, the one of the rare UDP ports that we get to see here. That is LDAP. 2375 and 2376 TCP are both associated with Docker in sixth and seventh place. In eighth place, we have 443 TCP. That is encrypted HTTP, HTTPS. Sometimes we go with TLS. And in ninth place, 80 TCP, which is unencrypted web traffic, which has moved up by one. And then at 10th place, we have 123 UDP, which is the network time protocol, which has gone up by 2. Next, let's take a look at the top 10 most sources probing. This is number of individual sources and not a measure of volume. But you can see here also not too many moving parts. We'll go over these ports real quick. 445 TCP is SMB, which has been towards the top for a very long time. We've talked about 23 and 80. We've talked about ICMP. In fifth place, we have 8080 TCP, which is an alternate web port, sometimes associated with proxies or IoT devices. In sixth place, we have 5555 TCP, which is Android Remote Debug Bridge, which is up by 5. So we'll take a closer look at that. 1433 TCP is MS SQL Server. 123 we've talked about, 22 we've talked about, and 389 we've talked about. So the one that's sort of a surprise here is 5555. So let's take a closer look. So this is scan sources on port 5555, Android Remote Debug Bridge. You can see it's very, very spiky. So it looks like someone's got some sort of scheduled scan going pretty regularly, but you can also see the baseline has moved up in the last week or so. So the major sources for these scans are Switzerland, US, and the Netherlands. So it's interesting. I'm not really sure what happened with the spiky scheduled scanning between what is that? In the last month or so, it seems like it might have dropped off the radar and then kicked itself back up. But you know, who knows?
The 5555, the Android Debug Bridge, has been pretty active for a year with the moving around, and it's been in our in and out of our top 10. It hasn't probably dropped further than 12th or 13th in a year and a half, 2 years probably. But yeah, that the fact that the spikes disappeared there, I'm wondering if that was systems that were shut down when folks went on vacation over the holidays, so they couldn't join the botnet to scan because the systems were shut down over the holiday. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because it was so consistent in early December there, and then just disappears, and now all of a sudden it's back.
It's interesting because you can see how dense those spikes are around the holiday season, and then you hit the first of the year and you see fewer of them. It doesn't completely go away, and then around the 5th, it almost entirely drops out. You see one big spike on the 9th, and then only until the last couple days, 16th or 17th, do we finally see all of those spikes come back in, and not quite at the same level either. Really interesting to me. I'd love to have a solid explanation as to why. Maybe somebody forgot to pay a server hosting bill and it expired at the start of the month. I don't know. Actually, no, those are scanned sources. So, no, but it could be. You know what? I'm doing a lot of speculating, and it's probably more exciting for me inside of my own head as I go through it, but it's probably terribly boring for you guys to watch me try and figure it out. So let's move on. This is scanned sources on port 389 UDP, which is LDAP. And this is an interesting one for me because rarely do you see such clean-cut right-angle graphs when things change, which to me really suggests that you've got a single botnet or single scanning effort on doing this, and then it's growing like almost immediately. It's kind of wild to look at. Now you're still talking about scan sources on the order of thousands or tens of thousands sources here, but to see these movements with such hard lines that's real interesting to me. So one of the big clusters of sources was a provider in the US, which is about 200 sources. And there are other large clusters in other places in the US and in the Netherlands. But someone has a definite, like, I don't know how to say it other than like they seem to be maybe the only people out there really scanning on this port, but they're doing it in a big way. I don't know if you've got any other thoughts on that, Jim.
This is a fascinating graph. I can't remember the last time I've seen one that was, these steps. I mean, we see the spikes all the time, but and I'm trying to remember. We had a vulnerability recently. Was it the Log4j that was, yeah, with the Log4j stuff, some of that was back-end connections to LDAP servers.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember seeing some of those URL, the attack formats and the brackets that specifically had LDAP. So this could be that. I mean, it's
yeah. That was my thing, is maybe some of this is related, but the fact that they're so flat that is really, really unusual.
Like the only time you ever see it that flat is when you got scanners on the order of like 1 or 10 of them maybe, and they move like that because there's not any other noise to be seen here. But
right, this is a really fascinating graph.
Yeah.
Now I want to go dig into our data and see what exactly where these are coming from. Try to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, and what happened on the 25th too, where you have that one spike where you've got it hits and it drops off immediately. Like, was that some sort of? But it scans sources too. It's not volume; it's sources. So
right,
some sort of test from the existing botnet, and it was always there, and then suddenly, I don't know.
And what happened with the sudden drop off here, last week, and then jump back up. Where did those guys go? What?
Yeah,
this is one of the more fascinating graphs I've ever seen on the internet weather. Just because I now I want to go dig into our data and see if I can figure out what's going on here.